You're listening to the Bots and Bosses podcast, the only show where robots and humans attempt to work side by side. Presented by John Binks, technologist, author, and your AI ringling tour guide. So, buckle up and let's deep dive.
When disaster strikes, it's a gut-wrenching moment, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Our first instinct is often to help, to rush in, find solutions. But what happens when the very system designed to coordinate that help is itself under fire, facing, a fundamental reevaluation? Today, we're diving deep into this critical debate that's shaping the future of disaster management in the United States. We're focusing specifically on FEMA, the Federal Emergency Management Agency. Our mission here is to explore two main, sometimes conflicting viewpoints defining this conversation. On one side, you've got these calls for a really radical overhaul, maybe even eliminating FEMA as it is now.
Right.
And on the other side, you hear strong defenses of its vital ongoing role. Okay, let's try and unpack this.
Sound good.
Our sources today, they include insights from a recent public meeting of a pretty high-profile review council, alongside expert analyses that really push back against some common criticisms.
And what's fascinating here, I think, is how these discussions aren't just theoretical exercises. They're happening against a very real backdrop.
Yeah.
I mean, think about the recent devastating flooding in Texas and New Mexico, or even looking back at events like Hurricane Katrina.
Right.
For anyone interested in how our nation prepares for and responds to crises, understanding these different perspectives is, it's absolutely crucial right now.
So let's jump right into that first perspective then. The powerful call for a fundamental transformation of FEMA.
Okay.
This movement largely stems from the FEMA Review Council, which President Trump established with a pretty clear goal to provide recommendations on how to streamline, maybe right-size, the federal government's role in disaster management.
And leading this charge are some pretty key figures. You've got Secretary Noem, Secretary of Homeland Security, and Secretary Hexet, Secretary of Defense. They're co-chairing the council.
Along with Governor Phil Bryant, the former Mississippi governor, who's the council vice chair.
Right. And the core vision articulated by Secretary Noem is, it's a significant philosophical shift, really.
How so?
They believe federal emergency management should fundamentally be state and locally led. That's the phrase they use.
Okay.
With the federal government operating purely in a supporting role. Now, this directly challenges the historical perception, maybe the reality sometimes, of FEMA's operation.
Where the federal level has often been seen as, slow to respond, maybe slower to get resources out.
Exactly. Perceived that way, certainly. It really speaks to this desire for local empowerment, letting states take the lead.
And the council members, they've been quite vocal, haven't they? Citing alleged failures and criticisms that go back decades.
Oh, absolutely. For instance, they've repeatedly cited decades of gross mismanagement and negligence. Pretty strong words.
Yes, staggering failures matched by their longevity, I think was the quote.
That's it. And they point back to Hurricane Katrina, which is, nearly 20 years ago now.
Incredible.
Noting many open claims still lingering from that disaster. And there were even these staggering reports of $2 billion in fraudulent claims paid out just in the first 2 years after Katrina.
$2 billion. Wow.
Yeah. With $400 million apparently still being spent on recovery as late as 2021.
Those historical figures, they certainly raise serious questions about accountability, don't they?
They do. It's the kind of legacy that inevitably shapes public perception and, fuels these calls for reform. But these criticisms aren't just historical, are they? They extend right into recent events.
Absolutely, they do. During the Maui wildfires, for instance, there were reports that residents received different answers from basically every FEMA employee they spoke with.
Which leads to frustration. Lack of clarity.
Exactly. A profound lack of helpful assistance or clarity. And here's a deeply concerning detail that the council brought up. Allegations that 1 in 6 survivors were forced to trade sexual favors, other favors for just basic supplies.
That's incredibly serious.
It is. Council members also highlighted controversial spending, specifically citing claims, and we should stress, these are claims reported by the council of illegal aliens staying in luxury hotels using FEMA dollars. They pointed to the Roosevelt Hotel in New York City as an example, where rooms reportedly cost over $300 a night.
Okay.
Then more recently, in 2024, after Hurricane Helen, Allegations surfaced that FEMA's Disaster Relief Fund was unable to provide the necessary relief.
Because
Because, the allegation goes, millions of dollars have been diverted to housing and transportation for illegal aliens. Residents in affected areas apparently saw no FEMA personnel and had to rely on local volunteers. And then, after Hurricane Milton, also 2024, a really serious claim emerged that FEMA officials in Florida ordered relief workers to skip houses that had certain campaign signs. Specifically those with President Trump's name on them. Now, the council was quick to note these specific workers were reportedly fired.
Okay, so there was some action taken.
Yes, with a strong statement emphasizing that politics has no place in disaster relief. Which, you'd hope is obvious.
You would hope. It's clear that from the council's perspective, these aren't just isolated incidents, right? Governors, like Louisiana's Governor Landry, echoed these feelings.
Yeah, he highlighted that FEMA's bureaucracy has only grown to the point of dysfunction. That's his word, dysfunction.
Leading to what? Paralysis?
Paralysis and red tape, he argued, that significantly delay rescue and rebuilding efforts. He cited a specific instance, the Army Corps of Engineers dragging its feet on Grand Isle levees.
Okay.
Despite $135 million spent since Katrina, it's costing taxpayers more and leaving communities vulnerable. And he also brought up Risk Rating 2.0.
Yes, the new flood insurance rating system.
Right. FEMA's newer data-driven method for calculating premiums. He asserted it's driving flood insurance to unaffordable limits for many people.
So we connect this all back to the underlying philosophy.
It ties back to that strong belief that federalism matters and states' rights need to be respected, just like Secretary Noem emphasized.
Right.
It really sounds like the council's work aims to genuinely empower states and local authorities. They're operating on the premise that, locals know their communities better than the government ever could.
It's about a significant shift in power and responsibility, essentially.
Exactly.
And to make this happen, to operationalize it, the council has broken down its work into specific subcommittees, each tackling a critical area.
That's right. First, there's the Federal State Coordination Subcommittee,
Yeah.
co-chaired by Governor Glenn Youngkin and Governor Greg Abbott.
Okay, what's their focus?
They're actively evaluating the traditional roles and explicitly aiming to shift responsibility to the states. They've apparently reviewed over 12,000 public comments.
Wow, that's a lot of input.
It is. And they're meticulously mapping out the 32 core FEMA capabilities, the fundamental services FEMA provides,
Yeah.
everything from logistics and mass care to infrastructure repair.
Community recovery, all that.
Right, all of it. To understand exactly where roles should shift from the federal government supplanting local efforts to simply supporting them, they're also looking hard at FEMA's funding responsibilities with states.
Makes sense. What's the next committee?
Then there's the Disaster Response Recovery Assessment Committee, co-chaired by Kevin Guthrie and NIMKID.
Okay.
They're looking at FEMA's statutory functions, things like disaster assistance, the National Flood Insurance Program, mitigation efforts. Their approach is this two-pronged methodology.
Which
One prong focuses on immediate changes the acting administrator could make, sort of internal tweaks. The other targets broader statutory changes that would require action from Congress.
Got it. Legislative versus administrative changes.
Exactly. And they're also conducting these regional listening sessions to get input from diverse areas, hurricane states, West Coast, Tornado Alley, you name it.
And what's particularly insightful here, I think, is the importance they're placing on EMAC, the Emergency Management Assistance Compact.
The state-to-state aid system.
Precisely. It's a crucial mutual aid system that states share resources and people during emergencies. The council wants to strengthen it, especially by improving how states get reimbursed when they help each other out.
That seems practical.
Very. And they're also discussing parametric insurance, especially for really costly things like debris removal.
Parametric. Remind me what that is again.
So basically, payouts get triggered by specific event parameters, like, say, wind speed hitting a certain level or floodwaters reaching a specific height, rather than waiting for traditional damage assessment.
So it could potentially speed up relief payments significantly.
That's the idea, much faster. All of this really points toward a more proactive, maybe financially streamlined approach from their perspective.
And finally, there's a final report subcommittee co-chaired by Phil Bryant and Michael Watley.
Their job is to pull it all together.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Synthesize all these findings into a final report, due by May 20, 2025. They're aiming for a proactive approach to disaster management that they hope will last far beyond any single administration. It really paints a picture of a desire for, well, fundamental change.
A really significant shift being proposed.
Now, here's where the perspective shifts dramatically. We've heard one side right, the calls for radical change, driven by some very powerful critiques, concerns about efficiency, local control. But there's a strong counter-narrative, one that's often overlooked, that really changes the picture of FEMA's actual role.
Okay.
This perspective asserts that a lot of the recent criticisms often rely on misunderstandings and outright falsehoods. It emphasizes FEMA's critical and active role, and it provides evidence of accomplishments.
And I think it's absolutely crucial here to clarify FEMA's fundamental operational philosophy to really understand this counter-narrative. Disaster response and recovery at their core are locally executed, state-managed, and federally supported. That's the model.
Right.
Critically, FEMA is not a first responder. They just aren't. It does not have helicopters or construction workers standing by to be everywhere at once.
That's a common misconception, isn't it?
It really is. Their role is coordination, funding, and support. Think of them less as the firefighters rushing into the burning building.
Okay.
And maybe more like the air traffic controller coordinating all the planes trying to land safely in a crisis zone. They don't fly the planes themselves, but they make sure everyone lands safely and resources are deployed efficiently.
That's a helpful analogy, a vital clarification. So let's address some of those direct claims we heard earlier and look at the evidence presented to counter them. First, Claim 1. FEMA is wasteful, mismanaged, and cannot maneuver.
Right. The inefficiency argument.
The reality presented by this counter-narrative is that FEMA is the nation's primary disaster response agency, capable of massive mobilization when needed.
Okay, like what kind of mobilization?
Well, in 2024, for Hurricanes Helene and Milton alone, FEMA apparently deployed over 8,300 staff. That's about 37% of its entire workforce.
That's a huge chunk of their people.
It is. And they obligated $4.5 billion for relief. They approved $4.3 billion in aid for Hurricane Helene survivors specifically, and deployed around 5,000 responders just for that event.
And historically.
Looking back, say from 2004 to 2013, FEMA obligated over $95 billion for 650 major disasters. It also ran 410 emergency shelters just for survivors of Helene and Milton recently. These numbers, they paint a picture of a highly active and engaged agency.
So what does this tell us on a broader scale then, beyond just the numbers?
Well, the argument is that FEMA's existence actually saves lives and money long term.
How so?
By helping states rebuild stronger, enforcing things like flood insurance, they argue it contributes to reducing future costs and risks. Government Accountability Office, the GAO reports, for instance, confirm progress controlling fraud and refining logistics after Hurricane Sandy.
So improvements were made post-Sandy, learning from past events like Katrina.
Exactly. It shows improvements in learning curves. So the counterargument is it's certainly not some static, incompetent agency. It adapts.
Okay. What about the next claim? Claim 2. FEMA abandons people in need or pulled out of disaster areas.
This is explicitly stated as false by those defending FEMA. During Hurricane Helene, yes, FEMA did briefly pause door-to-door canvassing for staff safety.
Why was that?
Apparently due to threats, which were directly linked to rumors spreading at the time. But it's confirmed they continued to support survivors through other means and quickly resumed normal operations once it was safe.
Right. And we also need to clear up the funding myth that often comes up.
Yes, the idea that they run out of money.
Exactly. The acting FEMA director publicly confirmed FEMA absolutely has enough money for the Helene response. Congress had recently replenished its disaster fund by $20 billion.
So claims of FEMA running out of money or prioritizing other spending over disaster relief?
They're just not accurate based on the facts. These budgets are managed by Congress specifically for declared disasters. That distinction often gets lost in the public conversation, doesn't it?
It does. Which brings us to maybe the most sensitive one, Claim 3. FEMA prioritizes illegal immigrants, foreign aid, or partisan agendas. How do we make sense of those accusations?
Yeah, that's a crucial area of public concern, and it's where a lot of misinformation seems to take root.
So what's the reality, according to FEMA defenders and analysts?
The reality is these claims are largely unsubstantiated. Yes, FEMA did run a separate program to reimburse localities for migrant shelter costs.
Okay.
But, and this is the key part, it had its own distinct funding stream. It never drained disaster funds needed for Americans. That's been confirmed.
So the money wasn't being shuffled around?
No, Academic analysts, reporters, they confirm FEMA does not redirect hurricane funds to foreigners or use disaster grants as political favors. Those claims about money going to Israel, Ukraine, or illegal immigrants instead of hurricane victims, they were part of a misinformation frenzy that's been widely debunked.
And FEMA's actual mission
Is unequivocally nonpartisan disaster relief. Yeah. Period. And it provides direct assistance, like up to $43,600 per household for home repairs. That was the cap in 2024. Real help to real people.
Okay. And then there's Claim 4. FEMA camps and civil liberties violations are imminent. These seem to pop up after every major disaster.
They do. And they're described simply as long-standing conspiracy theories, not reality.
So what does FEMA say about them?
FEMA explicitly labels the FEMA camps rumors as false. They explain that temporary lodging sites are set up for rescue workers, not for detaining civilians.
Right.
After Helene, for example, they set up secure lodging for responders, specifically to avoid taking up hotel rooms needed by survivors. The security is there to protect personnel and assets, not for anything sinister.
And it's crucial to understand, isn't it, that such theories are, well, they're truly dangerous lies that erode public trust.
Absolutely. They erode trust in a critical agency and distract from the agency's real humanitarian work, which, by the way, has increasingly focused on proactive stuff like building resilience and safety in communities before disaster strikes.
Okay, finally, Claim 5. States can and should handle disasters themselves. FEMA is unnecessary. The state empowerment argument taken to its extreme.
Right. This perspective, while it advocates for state autonomy, it arguably overlooks how complex modern disasters have become.
Because states do handle most things, right?
Absolutely. States handle the vast majority of emergencies. For example, in fiscal year 2023, there was something like 24,000 state-level disaster incidents versus only 60 federal disaster declarations.
So the feds only step in for the really big ones.
Essentially, yes.
Yeah.
Federal coordination becomes crucial when disasters cross state borders or completely overwhelm local capacity. Think massive hurricanes, widespread wildfires, earthquakes.
Things that are just too big for one state alone.
Exactly. Emergency managers widely warned that eliminating FEMA would leave big gaps. Many states, especially maybe smaller, rural ones, simply lack the money and expertise to fully respond to these large-scale catastrophes on their own.
And FEMA's ability to mobilize nationally is key.
It's a huge benefit. Their ability to quickly mobilize funds and assets nationwide, like we saw with Hurricane Milton, where FEMA pre-staged resources before the storm even hit, that's something individual states often can't do at that scale.
And local officials have sometimes praised FEMA.
Oh, frequently. Local officials have often credited FEMA with providing essential housing and repairs that small towns could never have managed alone. It really highlights the symbiotic relationship maybe between federal and local efforts. It's not always adversarial.
So what does this all mean for you, the listener? I mean, listening to these two very different takes.
Well, it truly highlights the tension, doesn't it, between the desire for a state-led, maybe more streamlined disaster response and the hard reality of these complex, large-scale disasters that often seem to require robust federal coordination.
It's a dynamic, ongoing debate with very real-world consequences.
And it reinforces that both perspectives, despite their different approaches, fundamentally agree on the need for effective disaster response and accountability. No one's arguing against that.
Right.
The real challenge then lies in how to achieve it.
Mm-hmm.
Is it through radical structural reform, like the council proposes? Or is it by focusing on improving the existing framework, which the counter-narrative suggests is already happening, albeit maybe imperfectly?
So why should you, listening now, care about this deep dive? Why does this debate matter?
Well, understanding these different viewpoints is pretty crucial for being a well-informed citizen, wouldn't you say?
Yeah.
Especially as our nation faces, frankly, more severe disasters than ever. Climate change isn't making this any easier.
True. It helps you evaluate information critically, understand the immense challenges involved in protecting communities when they're at their most vulnerable.
So, what stands out to you from these conflicting narratives? How do you think they shape public perception and policy debates, especially when accurate, unbiased information can be so critical in a time of crisis? Something to think about.
As we've explored this complex world of disaster management and the, passionate debate around FEMA, it's clear the future of how we respond to crises is actively being shaped right now. The question isn't just if we'll face more devastating events, sadly, but how prepared we'll be and who will ultimately lead the charge when they happen.
And maybe consider this. In an era where information, and sometimes, let's be honest, misinformation spreads so rapidly, often without full context, what responsibility do we have as informed citizens to truly understand the roles and capabilities of critical agencies like FEMA? To look beyond the headlines and the sound bites.
Yeah.
What are the real implications of choosing one path over another for the actual communities, the people on the ground who rely on this support in their darkest hours?
We hope this deep dive has given you a clearer picture of the challenges, the opportunities in disaster response today, and perhaps left you with a few new questions to explore on your own.
Well, that's a wrap of this episode of the Bots and Bosses podcast. Enjoyed the show? Don't just listen. Follow the Bots and Bosses podcast and connect with John Binks online. Remember, the bots are getting smarter, but you're still the boss. For now, see you next time.